Hello, welcome to our podcast. We decided to do the movie Nausicaa, and I'm going to go ahead and get started with editing and camera work. And since this was an animated film, there wasn't much camera work, so to speak, but editing was definitely a huge part of this film. And I noticed that they used low angle shots where they were like looking up at the people in authority when they were speaking to show their power. And then when they would show the civilians, I want to call them, they made the shot at a higher angle looking down at them. For example, on the scene where they were all shouting in anger at the king, they were still shown at this low angle, like looking down at them. And the king was still shown at a higher angle, like looking up at him to differentiate who was the authority figure, which I know is often used in movies that aren't animated. So I just thought it was interesting that so many common camera shots were used in this film since it was animated. And I guess I just never paid attention to the different camera angles while watching an animated film. Now, I did see that the music was pretty impactful in this film as well. Miles, did you notice anything?
Actually, I did the music, and well, in an animated film, music's a pretty big part of it to set the tone and help and yeah help set the tone and like how one thing I like about the film was it was very in tune of the culture and setting of the film. The music was actually composed by Hisaishi. He was a Japanese composer and also a musical director known for over like 100 film scores. And at various points in the films, something I something that was kind of very interesting with me was they had an 80s synthesizer loop that was used in some of the scores and some of the music in the soundtrack, and then uh, two other elements of two other elements in the music was the electro rock. They had electro rock, and they had synthesized Indian music, which was just very interesting to me that all those components were put into like a kind of Japanese style animated film. So that's really all I really had about the music.
That was good. That was pretty interesting. Now, with this film being animated, unlike the other ones that we've studied, Bryce, did you notice anything about the setting and the costumes?
That you typically always notice with animated films is that their costumes typically never really change. They typically always wear the exact same outfit they had on since the beginning of the movie. In the beginning of the movie, you see this young lady Nausicaa. She has on same outfit pretty much the entire film, even as she's going through her crazy adventures. Um, Another thing you notice is that their outfits represent or kind of coincide with their setting as well. So you notice when they're in the area where the air is toxic, they have on the little gas masks to kind of cover up their faces so they're not breathing in the fumes to die, to put blatantly. You also notice that they typically always have like some sort of like long garments on in the deserty areas, or when they go to the forest and they kind of like they don't have their gas masks on because there's no toxic fumes there. They kind of have like how you are at home versus how you are out in public. It's kind of like a different shift. Um, but yeah, that's all I really got from the settings and the costumes.
Cool. Thank you. Now, voice actors have to have a special kind of gift to play their characters. So, Aria, can you tell us a little bit about the actors and casting for this film?
I'm gonna just go over like an overview of the English voice cast, which is redone by Disney in 2005. So Princess Nausicaa was played by Alison Lohman. Lord Yupa was played by Patrick Stewart. Kashana was played by Uma Thurman. Kurotoa was played by Chris Sarandon. Asbel was played by Shiloh LaBeouf. Mito was played by Edward James Olmos, and Pajit Mayer was played by Mark Hamill. Those are just pretty much the main cast. Of course, it is an animated film, so there are a bunch of voice actors in this film. In terms of the actors and casting in this film, I don't necessarily believe that there was a significance that can be drawn based on who these actors were portraying, just because it is a voice actor and the character isn't necessarily something that they had to play in person. So I don't think there was necessarily a significance between the casting and who they were playing in the film.
I totally agree with you. Now the script was pretty important to like what was going on in the movie, because otherwise we wouldn't know what was going on. So Marie, can you tell us a little bit about the script?
Yes, I can. So for this movie, the screenplay was written by Hayao Miyazaki and David Schmoller. The film was originally in Japanese, but was adapted into an English dubbed version in 1985 and was later dubbed again in 2005, like Aria said. And throughout the film, you can sort of tell that it's a dubbed film because the way the English lines are said are a bit abrupt at times or don't necessarily flow the way as they would in the original language. And due to this being an animated film, the script for the movie contained a lot more descriptive characteristics so that the voice actors would know what would be happening on the screen as they were saying their lines. And also because this film was animated, it didn't allow for, like most animated films, they don't allow for a lot of leeway or deviation from the script because the actors have to match with the animation. So they can't, unlike with live movies, they can't make up certain things as they go or just add in what like any personal touches that they want because that would not necessarily align with the animation. And Miyazaki and Schulmer wrote this film to tell a story about how humans need to appreciate nature and not try to just dominate or use it, or else it'll turn against us or just wither away, which you can tell was written into the script and is also displayed very well in the animation.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. And overall, I think this film was trying to teach us a lesson about, taking care of the environment. And if you don't, like, it will have a negative impact on the people living in it. Did anybody else have anything to add about the psychological impact of the film?
Yeah, I would completely agree with your point. I think it definitely was about humans' relationship with the environment, and Princess Nausicaa is more so like the spokesperson for the unspoken. In this case, is the environment and making sure that it's sustained and treated properly, which is something that we don't really see in the actual world. And humans tend to kind of contribute towards like degenerating and destroying nature, whereas Princess Nausicaa is an advocate for nature and telling us like she would probably be an environmentalist in real life and telling us that we need to preserve the planet because it is essential.
Yep, I completely agree with everything you said. Yeah, you said it so perfectly. So thank you for listening, and that will be all.